Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julianne Grant. I'm from Razorleaf Corporation, and welcome to our webinar today, where we're going to talk about extending your Aras processes with our new product called the Manufacturing Suite. I'm really pleased today to introduce our two speakers, Rodney Coffey, he's our practice manager for Aras, and Derek Meeting, he's our engagement director. So a couple of housekeeping notes before I hand it over to Rodney. First, we are recording this webinar and we will be sharing the recordings with all registrants. So if you have colleagues who are going to miss or can't attend with you today, we'll be sure to be sending those recordings out. And then I will be taking questions at the end of the session of the last 15 minutes. But I would encourage you to enter your questions in the questions panel, and I will get those lined up when we get to our Q&A section. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Rodney.
Very good. Thanks, Julianne. So yeah, we're very excited to have everyone here today. We're going to be talking about what's been a product in the works here at Razorleaf for some time, our Razorleaf Manufacturing Suite for Aras and for customers I know we have on the line, but also for PLM Accelerate. So I thought to kind of kick this off, since this is the beginning of a series of webinars we're going to be doing, I would do just a quick introduction to who we are, just to kind of refresh and let all those new Razorleaf potential prospects out there know a little bit about us. So we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, which is very exciting. We've been around since about 2000. Razorleaf, when I talk about the company, I like to talk about our family of companies. So Razorleaf Corporation, who Derek and I represent, is the Razorleaf celebrating 20 years on the top. We also have a broad, probably the better part of 4 or 5 years, our Razorleaf Europe group. I'm also supporting Aras, and of course our Razorleaf Government Solutions business focused on Navy, Air Force, Department of Defense type work that we do. So we're about 50 plus or minus strong here in the United States and abroad, and of course have a whole slew of customers across all kinds of different industries and supporting all sorts of different implementations. So we do support multiple PLM systems. Today we're going to be focused on the practices I am most involved in today, Aras and Infor. So to know us and where that relationship stems from, so we have actually been working with Aras since about 2008, so quite some time. We were one of the first Aras Innovator implementation partners, and I believe still, if not the largest, one of the largest implementation partners here in the United States. We also have a growing Aras subscription base, which means we're doing frontline support as well as supporting their license needs of those Aras subscription customers that we have. So very excited about the growth we've had there in the last couple of years and where things are going for us there. Through that Aras relationship, we also, about 2016, started a relationship with Infor. As many of you know, they have the PLM Accelerate product, which is powered by Aras Innovator. And we started to be an implementation partner for them, handling a lot of large enterprise PLM accounts. And today we are an alliance partner of theirs, as well as a consulting services partner on the Infor consulting services side. So very good relationships on either end. We're excited to have both represented here in the webinar today in the audience. So what do we do here at Razorleaf? And this is important to how we came up with the manufacturing suite. So our core PLM competencies are professional services. We do implementation, integration, migration, as well as business process consulting. But what really helps us, what helps the baseline set and talk about what we're doing with manufacturing suite is to understand that we're also process experts. Things like change management, bill of materials management, supply chain management, even design automation and the CAD related things. Our group of 50 all comes from some sort of technical or process-based background that is focused on making businesses and organizations better at these things. So what we've done is, knowing that, I'll sort of dive into our manufacturing suite introduction. To know a little bit about the manufacturing suite is to know how those skills that I just talked about kind of flowed into this product over the course of history. So right around June 2016, so I guess if we know we've been in Aras since 2008, we commonly in implementation talk to customers about their challenges and have to configure and customize the Aras Innovator solution to go solve a specific problem. So right around June 2016, we released a product called 𝘎𝑃𝑗𝑎𝑠. And I know we have a number of folks in the audience in the webinar today that are actually customers of the 𝘎𝑃𝑗𝑎𝑠. So what that was it was a bundle of features that were helping customers do certain things around their change management processes. Release affected items, deal with the float of bill of materials on a change order. And that was around for quite some time as feature sets. And what we did was we released a standalone product, the 𝘎𝑃𝑗𝑎𝑠. So I've been the acting Aras practice manager, I think, for 2 or 3 years here now. And I've been involved and knew about the 𝘎𝑃𝑗𝑎𝑠 prior to that, and getting more and more involved in our implementations and getting a much better relationship with our solution architects and other folks around Aras here at Razorleaf. It really came to mind for me that we were project after project doing a lot of the same configuration, filling some of the same product gaps, and not quite having to do development where there were business applications that weren't quite there, things like supply management or certain quality management modules. So at the time, I was sitting in a conference room after one of our business meetings with a colleague, and we were kind of talking about how can we bring that value to our customers? How can we take all the experience we have from doing so many different implementations, seeing so many different problems, package that to reduce implementation time and offer a good supported product offering to our clients? And that was when the manufacturing suite concept was born. So about November of 2018. At the time, something else that was going on was we were prepping for ACE, which was in March of 2019. And we really wanted to evolve our 𝘎𝑃𝑗𝑎𝑠 product into something that solved some greater problems, prototype management being one of those, for example. So we kind of hunkered down with our product team, drew up some requirements, talked to some clients that had some needs there, and come March of 2019, that ACE, we released the change management suite. So a lot of 𝘎𝑃𝑗𝑎𝑠 customers were migrated forward to the suite. Some of those are here today, as well as some new customers jumped on board about that time. So over that time, we've been supporting, over that last year, from March 2019 to this March 2020, we've been supporting those customers, developing that product, as well as deploying it as part of our implementations. That has gone excellent. So bring us to date, or close to March 2020. Over the course of the last year, we went out and we talked to clients, and we had some other voids that we wanted to fill, some other applications we wanted to launch. So training management and supply management, as well as program and project management, were challenges that we were being faced with, and things that we knew we had a lot of experience around, and we could bundle up and package to get onto the Innovator platform. So that's what we did. So we spent about the last year doing the same thing, working with clients, getting good requests, working with our product development team to get that product ready for release. And many of you know, that's the reason we're here today. We were able to release that in March. So I'll tease this. I don't know if our product manager's here, but we do have other things in the roadmap. As of March, we started working on some enhancements to some of the things. So I'm not sure where I left off, but so what is Manufacturing Suite? So we sell this as a subscription offering, which includes support. And there are different modules which can be implemented individually, or if the whole suite is a good fit for the business needs, your PLM roadmap, then we would put the whole thing in place. So again, what we've tried to do is either extend on out-of-the-box capability that exists on the platform, or fill voids with new business applications that don't exist on the platform. So we are working closely with our Aras and Infor partners to make sure we're not developing things that are in the product roadmap. So the things that we're trying to tackle are things that we know they're not trying to tackle, right? So just another benefit of our great relationship with them. So we're going to kind of switch gears here a little bit. What I'd like to do is, in order to go through the features and the benefits and things like that, Derek Needing has been along the ride here as we went the last couple of years getting this together. So I'm going to give Derek a chance to introduce himself. Derek, if you'd kind of introduce your role here at Razorleaf and what your role in the manufacturing suite has been, I think that'll be a great place to kind of pick up just some conversation around the different modules.
Great, thanks, Rodney. Yeah, so you mentioned Razorleaf is celebrating their 20th anniversary. I'm actually celebrating my 20th anniversary as well. So I was the first employee here at Razorleaf. I had a number of different roles, as you can imagine. Before Razorleaf, I was in the the engineering world in a med device company. Here at Razorleaf today, my role as engagement director is I sit as the technical guy between the sales and the services side of the organization. So I help our sales team develop proposals and kind of lay out what an engagement looks like with a customer. But part of doing that is I get to hear the needs that our customers and our prospects have. And as you mentioned, a lot of the products that we're going to talk about in the manufacturing suite, they come from us seeing needs in our customers and then trying to productize those needs so it's not always a one-off. And so that's kind of my role, working with our product team, working with our sales team, working with our services team, is to try to hear those things and try to communicate those so that we can build these sort of products and we can enhance the functionality of the tools that we're working with.
Very good. That's great. So what I thought we'd do, Derek, is I think maybe just as a conversation, we could kind of go through and talk about the different suites, some of the benefits of those. What I'd like to do is start with the change management suite. So, I'm going to pull the slide up here and we can kind of talk different things, but what I'd like to know from your standpoint, getting involved in this is, I talked a little bit earlier, we've been solving change management is one of the wheelhouse PLM applications. We've been solving problems for customers here since the beginning. And we have a lot of ECO toolkit customers existing today. What are the new benefits, features that you're excited about in change management that we're going to be bringing to our clients?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I guess even before I get to the new benefits, let me just mention one thing that may be obvious, but I think it's worth mentioning, is that change management runs like you would expect an Aras application to run. It extends Aras, and it itself is extendable. And so we've brought to the table some things that we have seen that our customers in the manufacturing world tend to need. And those customers can take what we have, they can use it, or in some cases, they can even use it as a starting point to do even more than that. So a couple examples is, we found that in the manufacturing world, everybody, for example, has a prototype process. And a lot of people want to be able to segregate their prototype and their production processes from each other. So maybe during prototype, it's a revision cycle of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then during the production process, it's a ABC sort of revision cycle. Well, that was something that we were asked to do frequently, to set up the workflows and the revision schemes and everything to be able to enable that. But we threw that in change management. So part of the change management module in the suite is the ability to have prototype and production release processes. Quick change, there's another one. So there are times when our clients want to do a change. Think about something like a spelling error, something that doesn't require a major revision, but it does require change. And if there's files involved, of course, there's check-in and checkouts. And when I was back in the med device world, if you made a revision change to a drawing, the FDA got involved, right? I had to have a track record of everything that happened. And if it was just a spelling change, that was a real pain. So quick change gives us the ability to, inside of Aras, to make these simple changes, these non-form, fit, and function changes without having to bump a rev. So again, taking what Aras already does and extending it for something that we saw was very common. The last one that I'll point out is the affected item handling. And so what that's all about is when an ECO is already up and running, we find that sometimes you may find items that should have been added to the ECO in the beginning. Maybe as you do your research, you realize that more items are affected than you thought were affected. So people want to be able to add items to the ECO as it's currently in process. And so out of the box, you can't do that without some heavy customization. So it's another feature that we added to the change management suite. So these are just the sort of things that we're seeing that people in the manufacturing world are commonly needing to do, and we don't want them to have to customize Aras every single time they have to do these things that we find very common.
Very good. So when we think about some of just the overarching benefits, the things that they're going to see, when we think about the technology, it's pick and click and feature based, as we just discussed. But if we look at some of the business benefits of rolling these tools out, how do you see that working within the clients, and how can they expect to get their ROI out of something like the change management suite?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll start with the one that's in the upper right, which is minimize implementation costs by reducing customization. So by using customizations that are already built, of course, there's a cost to the suite that we offer, but we find that the cost is much less than us having to do this for you specifically every single time. Most customers have a fixed amount of money that they can spend on an implementation. We would rather that money be spent on things that are very specific or very unique to them versus things that we find to be common. So we find that it does minimize implementation cost. Even though the suite itself has the cost of the suite is less than it would take to do those customizations. Not to mention, you probably get some enhancements that others needed that maybe you didn't even know you need because they're part of the suite. So I think that's one of the big things as well. So that's kind of on the implementation side. But then even on the use side, we're seeing benefits, and these benefits start to hit the bottom line. So I mentioned the quick change process. You know, there's studies out there that say things like a change process within a company costs between $5,000 and $10,000. So if we have to go through and do a full change process for very simple changes, there's a cost to that. There's time involved, there's people involved. So by facilitating quicker changes, same thing with the affected items. If every time I find an additional item that now needs to be added to the change, if I have to go create a new change versus adding it to an existing one, there's a cost to that. So if I can have the ability just to add it to an existing change that's already flowing and somewhere in its process, then I can reduce that cost. And so that's kind of what we're finding, is that there's kind of two different cost buckets that people see benefits in. One is on the implementation side, and then the other is just on the process side, the ability to do things better, to do things quicker, which that of course saves time, saves money.
Very good. So a couple specific change management benefits that we got there, and one that I think is going to be a trend throughout the whole suite, and that's lowering implementation costs, focusing on things that, I love what you said there, focus on customers spending their money for configuration on things that are specific to their business and not things that are just core PLM functionality that every customer needs. Yeah, that's perfect. Right. So I want to switch gears a little bit, move a little bit away from change management and talk about the training management piece. I'll say that in my time in PLM, so over the course of my career, having been a trainer, having focused on adoption with customers, and also had to manage all the course content, all the rollout, all the things that have to happen for a customer during go live, I'm pretty excited about this offering. I think it gives us a way to move something that's not traditionally stored in PLM closer where the product data is, which will help clients. So we've had this request from a number of customers across a number of industries. It comes a lot from quality. We've got a pretty good core of med device customers, and this is something we always have to work through with them. So a lot of different angles and a lot of different requests that come into this. What I'd like to do is kind of give you a chance, Derek. I know you and I and a lot of internal folks have had a ton of discussion around this, so I'd like to get your insight into how we're seeing this fit into the industry, what the benefits are going to be for our clients to take a look at this training management module in PLM.
Yeah, Rodney, I see the training management module kind of takes two threads. There's two benefits that it provides. And the first thread is very close to the core of PLM. PLM is about managing product data. And so we typically think of bill of materials and drawings and change and that sort of thing. That's obvious. But there's product data that is about training. So imagine that you have a product that requires some level of training for assembly and testing. It's a complex product. I know when I was in the med device industry, there were things that you weren't allowed to use that assembly device unless you'd been trained on it. And so how do we track that people are being trained on these sort of things? How do we track that the people that are in the QA area that are doing spot checks to our product before they're sent out, that they've been trained, that they know how to do those checks? Here's another one. How do we track that if there's a change to the product, that we know what training is related to that product and related to that change? So you think about it, I mean, how many of us have ever bought a product and we're looking through the owner's manual and we find that the owner's manual is a little different than what we actually bought? There's probably a change at some point and no one knew to update that owner's manual. Well, the same thing can happen with training. What happens if I have a product that has relevant training on how to assemble, how to test that product, and I don't know that that training needs updated? And so that's really what the training management module is about, is the ability to track that information in the same place we're tracking the product information. And of course, in PLM, we can create links. So you have product information, you have training information, you link the two things together. And so I think what that does, allows us to start to consolidate and to start to put some intelligent relationships into what our product looks like. You can't get too far away from PLM without hearing the phrase digital twin. And I think anybody that knows anything about digital twin would have to agree that training is part of digital twin. If I want to build a high fidelity digital twin that has all of the information about how my product and how an instance of a product is assembled, I better know how those people were trained on the tools that they're using to build the product. If there's ever a problem in the field, I need to be able to track that. So what the training management module does is it adds some new classes, some new item types inside of Aras that allow us to start tracking things like classes and curriculums and registrants and tests and certifications, the documents that go along with those classes so that we know if the product changes, therefore the class needs to update, what documents need to update. All of that stuff can be tracked within Aras now. And of course, again, it's a PLM system, so we can start to link things together. So that's one of the threads that I see that training management takes. And I think that's very exciting because today we don't have a place to put that information. We don't have a place to track how training related to the product or the process is related. We don't have a place to put that. The other thread that I think is interesting is the training that you were kind of referring to when you were talking a second ago, which is the training about actually using the PLM system. Or I'm sorry, working at the company, not using the PLM system. The training about, you know, what tools do I need to know how to use? Most companies have some sort of training they have to do for OSHA or for, you know, discrimination training or that sort of thing. A lot of companies, large companies, of course, have training management systems, but the small and medium companies, they don't have that stuff. So where are we going to track that information at? PLM training, you mentioned, that's a great one. What users have been trained on the PLM system? What modules of the PLM system have they been trained on? Is there a new version of the PLM system that requires us to do updates training? You know, today maybe we're tracking that on a spreadsheet or heck, maybe even just through emails. And so if we've got this training infrastructure that we're putting product-related training information in there, I would argue let's throw some other training information in there as well and have a nice place to house all of that training information. Ron, I mean, I think it's really a gap that exists today. Again, big companies have training management systems, but most of the companies that are the size that we're working with, they don't have that. And I think it's a real gap that this module fills.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really excited about, as we think about, you know, there's been an ongoing trend specifically around the Aras platform that it gets bigger and bigger, right? It gets broader and broader. So we start to think about all the different fringe applications, not just change and bill of materials management, but all the other things we can accommodate. I think this kind of sits in the middle and allows us to connect as we start to talk to customers about managing their MES documents, their quality documents, supply documents, all these different documents that they have, and the document management piece, not the CAD management, but the true document management, standard operating procedures, test protocols, technical specifications, those types of things. As that continues to grow, this allows us to bridge the gap between those other parts that have traditionally not been part of PLM that we're now seeing on the platform, on PLM. Agreed. Yeah, so this is really exciting. So where change management was more of an, you know, I want to come back to something I said earlier, where change management was more of an extension of existing out-of-the-box applications. Training management is something brand new, a new application that we think can help bridge the gap between existing solutions. So this should plug and play right next to doc management, right next to the MES solutions that we've developed on the platform, things like that. So very, very excited about this. And we're having some really good conversations with customers about this and how to adopt it. So I'm hoping that we've given you some examples to think about how this fits in your organization. Definitely reach out, talk to us, give us examples, give us things to put in there, test and try this. So with that, that'll take us to the last application we're going to kind of talk about today, which is supplier management. And I want to be clear about what we're doing here. Again, there is some vendor information in Aras today, but this is a new module filling a gap that we are seeing across a number of our customers. There's a little bit of push or pull, likewise with MES document management that I mentioned, with ERP and supplier management data. So, you know, a lot of times we manage the supplier over an ERP, but what about the supplier audit? What about the supplier certificate? What about the supplier visits, the things that I have to do in order to qualify that supplier to provide us parts, to provide us components, or even services, right? So That is the gap that we're looking to fill here. And we've built some really good, a really good application to handle that data. So what I'd like to do is, Derek, maybe take a crack at describing the features, the breadth of what we're doing here with supplier management.
Yeah, I think you did a nice job kind of setting the stage there, Rodney. You know, we have supplier tracking information in ERP systems typically. Well, not typically, I think they all do. But one of the things about that is that we want to get supplier information closer to the design and early in the process, or as early in the process as possible. And so the ability for example, a design engineer, when he's building his product and putting his assembly together, the ability for him to know that we already have this supplier as a valid, onboarded, certified supplier versus choosing from some other supplier that's not, which then of course that causes time and trouble down the road. And so that was the idea behind the supplier management module, was to put some of that supplier information inside of the PLM system, again, close to the product, where you're going to want to use and consume that information. So the sort of things that we're tracking in there is, as the screen mentions, you know, the supplier profile. So a list of, you know, who are our suppliers? What are their capabilities? What do they do for us? What do we buy from them? The ability to see that. Who are the suppliers that are approved for a given part? So not only the list of suppliers, but now linking those suppliers to specific parts that we buy. Maybe even something about their capabilities, like this supplier has the ability to do ITAR compliance, or this supplier has a particular level of security clearance, those sort of things. The ability to start to track the supplier quality now that we've got that information in there. So are we doing supplier audits? And what do we find when those audits happen? If there's any sort of corrective action that comes up, an issue that's raised, and we go through the supplier corrective action process, what were the findings of that process? And what sort of, what was the output of that? Did it move our supplier quality down a little bit? And wouldn't it be nice to know that this supplier was hit and maybe we're having some problems with this particular supplier? So we have reports and dashboards that allow us to see that sort of information. And of course, because this is in Aras, it has the other things that you would expect, like there's workflow processes that go behind it. There are life cycle states to suppliers. So a supplier can be onboarded through various life cycle states. They can go through workflow processes when a corrective action takes place. So I think that having supplier information in ERP is great. It's not going to go anywhere. It's got to be there. But getting that supplier information, even through integration, back into the PLM system, where we can track more information and start to relate that information to our specific parts, I think it's only going to help us to design our parts faster, design our products faster, make sure that we're using valid, good suppliers as early in the process as possible. So, you know, like you mentioned with training management, this is really in addition to Aras. Where Aras does do some supplier or vendor tracking, it's pretty minimal information, just kind of contact card sort of information. This is going to level deeper in really tracking a lot of information about our suppliers and our supplier behaviors.
Yeah, very good. So I want to throw something out there as we think about how to use supplier management, and then tie it to some other things we've talked about. You know, when we talked about change management, you talked about the prototype scheme. We know there's always, or the prototype management, there's always this push or pull kind of between engineering and that bomb. That's their baby, right? They're not going to release that bill of material, that design bomb, until they're ready. But obviously we want to get that out early so people can go procure, so people can go do manufacturing planning, those types of things. With the prototype management piece of change management, that feature set, which will allow me to release a BOM prior to the final release, and then being able to incorporate the training management documents, the things that manufacturing has developed against that prototype BOM, and supply management to be able to go out and procure and validate and qualify the suppliers of the parts. That really tells a great story about how all these things can work together to evolve the business processes that we're seeing our customers have holes in.
Yeah, you know, Rodney, it really does. I mean, the way you described that is perfect. And I can't help but to think about digital twin. Because everything that we mentioned there is part of that digital twin. It's that digital thread that we're trying to build that really illustrates how our product got to what it is today. And we have to know that information. You can't have a high fidelity digital twin without the sort of things that we're talking about. And so having that information inside of our PLM system, I mean, that just makes getting to that end result of that digital twin that much easier.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. I'm going to click forward here. What I'd like to do is kind of tee up where we're going with some of the next steps, and then open it up to the audience for questions. So today was all about kind of exposing what we've been working on, talking about the different solutions that we have available right now, and kind of give you some context about what we're seeing in our customers and how we're going to be using these tools. We will deep dive into each one of these. I have a slide here I'll show in a little bit that has the dates for the future webinars. Each one of those will dive into each business application, the features, the picks and clicks in more detail. And then in the meantime, if anybody's interested in a private demonstration, again, we're looking for adopters to give us cases to put in these tools, to test them, stretch them, make sure that we've accommodated all the needs of our customers. So keep that in mind. So with that, I'm going to ask Julianne. Julianne, you've been keeping an eye on the question queue. Do you want to moderate the questions for us?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So we did get a good one in from Angela. She asks, how does the roadmap of the manufacturing suite incorporate with the regular Aras roadmap? You have made a lot of enhancements that I would see as mandatory in regular Innovator, like, for example, cancel change. And if anyone has any questions, please enter them in the questions panel. Thanks.
You want to take that one, Rodney, or want me to?
I tell you what, why don't you go first, and then I'll close on it.
Okay. Yeah, so I think something Rodney mentioned something earlier, which is, we're in close communication with Aras. So our goal is not to do functionality that they intend to do, or that should be left in the core product. So that's not our goal. So we're looking for those gaps. And now whether a particular feature should be in the core product or should not be in the core product, that's kind of a decision that Aras themselves makes. But certainly they want to create a platform that is extensible. And so in a lot of cases, those things that we find to be very common, they're just not going to be in the product because of the way that Aras is trying to build the product to be an extensible product that fits multiple industries and in multiple groups of people. And so, our goal is to work closely with Aras and try to make sure that we're knowing where their product is going, and then we're filling those gaps.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. To put another spin on that, and probably what would likely be a follow-up question to that, is we are keeping an eye. So while we have a product roadmap for manufacturing suite that we're keeping an eye on, we're constantly comparing that, contrasting it with the Aras product group to make sure that our manufacturing suite is broad right now as far as verticals we're supporting. Like we talked about a lot of those differences today. We have a lot of aerospace, we have a lot of med device, a lot of automotive, a lot of industrial equipment customers. These products are geared toward all those verticals right now. We're trying to take the best requests and features and put those in there. So I would say long term, we may see different flavors of these solutions, maybe verticalized. And of course, everything is going to move with the platform. So as the Aras platform evolves, upgrades, we're taking a look at our product, how to make those things better. Or long term, if Aras is going to build these things onto the core Innovator platform, then we might address things. But we're keeping an eye on that to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts.
Okay, great. We have a follow-on question from Angela. She's asking, can you make a live demo of your solutions?
Yes, absolutely. So today was the first of, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Today was the first of 4 different webinars we're going to do. Today was just about education, what we've been doing. The next 3 are about each of the supply, change, and training modules, and we'll be walking through pick by pick. And then today's webinar, as well as each one of those other webinars, will be recorded and posted to our website.
Good. Anyone has any questions, please enter them into the questions box. We have another one. We have leveraged document management capabilities in Aras for technical publications and process docs. Can you talk about how training, training management module would work with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start that conversation, Derek, and then if you want to add to that, you can.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so I think that's one of the things I'm seeing a lot. You know, being the Aras practice manager, I have exposure to all of our Aras and most of our Infor customers and what they're looking to do. Almost every one of those implementations has some type of document management where they're managing different types of documents. But I think where we see the training piece come in is, let's say that you have a standard operating procedure or the work instruction, and it's already loaded, managed, tied to the part within the system. What we're going to then be able to do is leverage that item as an attachment to the training curriculum, and then be able to schedule the course, track who's certified, track who's attended that course along with that. So all the modules that we're building, we're looking at the core Aras data model so that all the modules we're building will plug and play with things that are already there out of the box.
Yeah, Brian, I think that's a perfect. Yeah, I think that's a perfect explanation. I mean, I would think how you summed it up is right. That there's kind of two parts to it. One is the document that says, "Hey, here's our SOP," but then training management is about how do we disseminate that, and how do we track that we know we disseminated it, and how do we know that if someone needs to be updated, that we have that tracked somewhere. So it's really two different things, but they tie very closely together.
Very good.
Great. One more question in from Angela. She's asking, as you call your suite the manufacturing suite, do you also offer enhancements for MPP or data transfer to external suppliers, for example, data package solution?
There's really two questions there. Could you repeat that for me one more time?
Sure. So we call the suite manufacturing suite. Do you also offer enhancements for MPP or data transfer to external suppliers, for example, data package solution?
Yes. So the first part of that, we, as part of the Razorleaf product family, we have the manufacturing suite, and the name comes from the industry we're serving, our product manufacturers, right, of all different verticals. But we also have our Clover product, and in the roadmap is talks to build in and integrations, if you will, to other ERP platforms, which allow us to do the base level of supply management integration. So just swapping supplier information back and forth. And then the second part of that, I would say, is for manufacturing process planning. I would, again, kind of with my customer lens on, I've seen here in the last year a lot more Aras customers starting to talk about manufacturing process planning, implement MPP. Just as Aras has driven that in the product, the request for that has come up more and more. Our solution architect team, as well as our delivery team, services team, is currently working through a lot of, I'd say, early adopter projects around that and doing some really interesting things. I think long term, we might look at expanding our manufacturing suite into that. But right now, we're just trying to make sure that we're implementing the core product correctly, right? Making sure customers are getting the most out of what's there today before we extend on that. Does that answer the question?
She'll let me know, I'm sure. Yes, she said yes. Okay, we've got one more question here from Etienne. So does change management process show impact analysis on current or upcoming scheduled? Question mark. He has a second question following that, but.
Great question. So again, it's a risk of pushing our product manager over the edge. What I'm going to say is soon. So we have worked pretty hard over this first quarter on our project management piece, which kind of underlines program management. The connection in that solution with change management, the hope is to be able to have better reporting and more vision into the change process. So through that. So I've got a project. I want to look at the project. I want to see all the changes that happened over the course of that project, and then use that to judge impact my business, right? Another layer that we're really looking at across the manufacturing suite that we feel just lacks, and honestly lacks in the PLM space in general across all PLM products, is now that companies have done a better job adopting PLM and getting the data into the platform, how do I now use that data to make business decisions, which is all about BI, big data metrics, right? So we're working hard on making sure that reporting and pushing the data to the top so people can make executive decisions that affects their business is part of this. We're in the early stages of that across all the applications that we talked about today. I'd say later this year, early next, you'll start to see a lot more of that here.
Great. And his second question is, will training be linked to MPP process plans?
It absolutely could. Yeah. So the module itself, so like I said earlier, the module itself is could be standalone, but easily plugged into anything else on your Aras platform. So I think with training in particular, we are going to find a vast number of different uses. So in that particular case, if we implement MPP for your organization, like I know we've got a customer, I think on the line that we're doing MPP with right now, the vision would be once the manufacturing process plan is developed and the MBOM is created, now I want to go write work instructions, write standard operating procedures against that plan, tell manufacturing how to build the product. We could put training management in place to do that. So the procedures, the documents are stored in the doc management piece. The process plan is the MBOM container, and training management is sitting beside that in order to guide the certification, qualification of the employees building the product.
Great. He says, thank you. Next question. So we've discussed, integrating PLM to ERP for many years. How does supplier management module change the approach to that?
I don't think it does for our larger customers. They're already managing suppliers in ERP, right? So this kind of goes to the question I answered a little bit earlier. We do a ton of ERP integration today. Our two probably most popular or wheelhouse examples of what we're doing is passing the BOM from PLM to ERP. Am I breaking up?
A little bit.
You're good now, Rodney.
You sound back though.
Okay. Yep. And then I would say close behind that is passing the suppliers from ERP to PLM, right? So like I said earlier, the supplier is over there in ERP to go procure against. There's different part records against that. But when we think about the qualification, the scorecard, the reporting that happens on that supplier to qualify them, that's stuff that we're putting in PLM and it's happening in PLM. So I think the integration looks like suppliers created over in ERP. When it's created there, it's automatically created in PLM, and now we qualify it in PLM.
Okay, good. One more question. Can you share what other modules that are on the roadmap?
Derek, do you want to take a crack at that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, no, I can. Yeah, so we talked about change, training, and supplier. So the roadmap, Rodney showed a slide earlier that talked about project management, and he just referenced that. So that's kind of in the works now. We've been talking a lot about the project management. Issue tracking is another. Yeah, you can pull that slide up, Rodney. One of the first ones up there. Issue tracking is another module that will. That is in the works as well. And when we think about issue tracking, issue tracking is really the ability to do, assignments and be able to begin to relate those issues to other things within the PLM system, maybe to parts of the quality management and have some level of traceability with the issues that are raised. And then finally, new product development. And so this kind of goes hand in hand with some of the stuff that we've seen in change management about the prototype and production release process. But the new product development is about a suite of tools that are really focused on the new product development process. And so we know that during that process, there are particular workflows that need to be handled for. And so we want to have some of those workflows, some of those built-in workflows in there. Some of the things that you have to do around new product development related to the scope and the activities and building the teams around a new product development process. So that's another module. So the top three are the ones that are existing today and that the webinar series is going to go over. Then the next three are the ones that we're working on. Anything I missed there, Rodney?
I don't think so. Couple quick examples that might resonate with the folks in the audience, just because I know some of you. So if we think about new product development, when you think of NPI, we think of that as NPI, NPD, new product introduction, new product development. That is really going to encompass the phase gate process, concept design, release to market, end of life, that type of process. So that's what we're looking at building into that, along with the approval structures and workflows that come along with that. Everything will feed into the NPD module is our long-term plan. And then I have some history with quality, so I'm pretty excited about the issue tracking coming along too. So you've got 4 or 5 folks on the manufacturing floor, or you've got 4 or 5 issues that come from the product on the manufacturing floor. All those things are now tracked. They eventually roll up into a series of corrective actions, a CAPA, which eventually gets tied all together to a quality incident, which again is tied to our product. So for those of you who do serialized or lotted components, I don't know if we have any high-tech folks on the call, but I know that's important to them. When you release that product, they need to go out and know, hey, that lot is defective because it's tied to this quality incident. So issue tracking and the stuff we're doing with quality there, I'm really excited about that because, like I said, that's sort of a niche thing for me and something that I've helped customers solve. So some really great things ahead, for sure.
Great. We've got another question in. Does Razorleaf also contribute to the Aras community?
We do. Yeah, it's been our SA and product development group. So Dennis Leninger has been a big contributor out there, I know, as well as I think Bob Mingle and Rob Kubiak and some other folks on our product team, our services team. I think most of the things we have out there, I don't think we will release product sets or modules like what we're talking about here to the community. We are working on building sort of our own community to gather feedback and things like that. I'll talk about that in a moment. I think what will continue to contribute to community will be features, functionality, code, those types of things.
Great. And last question, can I get just a single module, or do I need the whole suite?
Yeah, so it works both ways. So you could purchase any given module, or you could purchase the entire suite. I should say, this is a great question to kind of elaborate on too. Like I mentioned earlier, it is priced and positioned as a subscription offering. So let's say, for example, this is how we're working with our change management suite customers today. When they purchase change management suite, they are going to have it deployed into their. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yep, keep going.
All right, perfect. So it can be deployed into the environment standalone, or we can deploy it to the environment standalone, and then let's say that there is a certain feature, like let's say we have a number of customers in this spot. They've already implemented a change process, and they want to pull out the prototyping piece of the change management suite and plug it in somewhere else. What we do in that case is we deploy change management suite. They get the new data type. That way they can see and use it as it is out of the box. And then we can pull just that feature set out and deploy it into their existing change processes. Another thing that's important is this makes you a Razorleaf subscription customer. So when you purchase the change management suite, you're getting Razorleaf support for that suite and that business process. So that support then comes into our support team and feeds our subscription support.
Excellent. I think that about covers our Q&A session. We're about 7 minutes to the hour, so I don't know if you want to have anything in closing, Rodney.
Yep, very good. So I know today we did a lot of talking, right? Not a lot of necessarily showing, but that was the intention of this session. We wanted to give you an idea of where we were coming from, the things we were seeing out there in the industry. So the next 3 sessions will be deep dives, technical picks and clicks. Each one of those is up here. I saw a lot of you registered for all the webinars, so I'm excited to see you in the future. Derek and I think maybe some other members of our tech team will be helping do that. So definitely excited about these sessions. Please continue to join us. And If you need any additional information right away from this, you can of course contact me. My email is up here, just rodney.coffee@razorleaf.com with a Y, like the drink but spelled different. And then we have opened up, we are starting to stem out and trying to do more things with our Aras customer base, including our M4PL and Accelerate customers. So we've talked about some user groups and some other things that we're trying to do this year. Just as a stem out to that, we've opened up this Aras community at razorleaf.com. So we are openly taking requests, ideas, want to collaborate with you. Please email that. That goes to myself as well as our product team, including Derek, so that we can make sure we're shaping these things to meet the needs of you. So also our webpage is up. You can see the link here. So I think, Julian, we're going to be sharing this presentation as well as the video recording soon. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Very good. All right. Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. And Julian, I'll hand it to you to close.
Great. Yes, so as Rodney said, we'll be preparing the recording here shortly. I'll go through and try to fix some of the blips that we had along the way. And our apologies for the technical challenges that some of you are having. I want to thank the folks who asked questions today. They were very helpful and informative and helped sharing with everybody else. We appreciate your time today. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, Wednesday, to talk about supplier management. And you'll be hearing from us in an email with the follow-on recording. Awesome. Yeah, May 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Great. Thanks, everyone. I will close down the webinar now. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.